The color, Summit Gray. The company, Sherwin-Williams. This is Hue Review, so let's review. I'm James from the Paint People. This is a channel all about painting, decorating, color, and color theory. And Hue Review is a show where I give you my opinion on paint colors. I'm going through as many colors as I can. And today is all about Summit Gray by Sherwin-Williams, which is a pretty popular gray. I'm going to give you the overall vibe of this color, how versatile I think it is, and then I'll give you my verdict. Whether I like this color, whether I would use it in my home, how I would use it, all that good stuff. But before I do that, a quick word from our sponsor. Today's sponsor is us. ThePaintPeople.com is your go-to destination for quality paint and paint supplies. One of our standout features is our ability to create any color from all major paint brands. And the best part, we deliver across the US and Canada. Visit our website today and discover a world of colors, quality, and convenience. And as a thank you for supporting us on YouTube, use coupon code JAMES5 for 5% off your order. Okay, so I'm gonna get into this review on Summit Gray. So right before I dive into this color, I wanna give you some alternatives from other paint companies. So if you didn't wanna use Sherwin-Williams, but you wanted something pretty close to Summit Gray, here are your options. They are not spot-on matches. They're just kind of close, maybe 80, 90% of the way. If you want Summit Gray, full-fledged, 100%, just get in Sherwin-Williams. That's always my recommendation. What's the vibe of this color? What's it all about? It's a gray, but what makes it summity? I guess in this case, summit means dark because I find Summit Gray to be a very dark gray. And we know how dark it is because we can look at the LRV, or the light reflectance value, which is a 30. And that means it has about a 30% light reflectance score. It only reflects about a third of the light that hits it, and that makes it a darker mid-tone color, which means in your home, it's going to feel pretty rich, pretty noticeable. Now, I think we all knew that, of course, Summit Gray, this looks like a gray, but the thing about gray is there's a lot of nuance to it. There's a lot of subtleties. The undertones aren't always as apparent as you might expect. What kind of gray is this? I think it's very much a neutral gray, which is kind of rare. Usually grays are a little more warm or cool leaning or whatever the case may be. I find that Summit Gray is pretty balanced. If anything, it maybe leans towards the taupey side of gray, which also means there's a bit of brown maybe mixed in, and like a touch of a red undertone. And red combined with gray typically translates to purple. If anything, this is a gray that does go a little more towards the purple side of things, which is kind of like a stone gray, like an earthy stone gray, which I really enjoy. I think it's an awesome color. So I think the color is going to feel a bit more moody and dramatic, but still grounded and settled, which I think is pretty cool. So that's the vibe, a bit of an earthy, darker, slightly purple leaning gray, very slightly. What's the versatility of this color? On the interior side of things and exterior. So inside the home, I would put Summit Gray at a low-mid versatility, lower middle class. And the reason for that is, even though it is gray, I think it's just a bit dark for a lot of people as like a wall color. I more so see it being used as an accent color, like an accent wall for a much lighter gray. It's sort of in this middle ground where it's not super dramatic off black territory, which could be really cool for those high contrast looks. But then it's also not light enough where you can easily just use it in rooms and not really worry about it. It has that decent amount of depth. So it's in this awkward place for me. And also the purple undertone, I think works in a lot of situations, and I do enjoy that kind of look, but for some people, it may clash a little bit depending on what other neutrals you surround it with. So just be very careful, test your colors. Before you get a lot of big cans of paint, just get one tiny little tester pot. I think it'll really serve you. On the exterior side of things, I put Summit Gray at a high versatility. I think dark grays like this look really cool when used outside. On the trim, definitely on the main parts of a home, or even on sections. A lot of exterior design nowadays focuses on different parts of the home being different colors. A certain section might be really cool with some Summit Gray slapped on. I think the undertones are great for exterior because it is neutral, but it does lean towards that purple side, which can hopefully help settle the cool aspect of the sun. So it'll probably feel cooler outside, but not so much so that it's going to look blue. So I think it's in a good position there. Really like it as an exterior choice. All right, so verdict time. How would I use this color? Where does it sit on the palette pyramid? I definitely don't think this is a main color. I don't even think it's a solid support color choice. This, to me, is an accent finishing color. So Summit Gray, I think, works best in those more accent situations, probably accent wall rather than accent room. I think it's going to really stand out amongst all the other lighter neutrals that are really popular nowadays, yet it still also has a little more lightness than like your deadpan blacks that are just super dark and sitting at like a 3 to 5 LRV. This is a 30 LRV gray, so it's kind of in that middle between mid-tone and really, really dark colors, which could give you a little more flexibility on either end. Now, before I give you my final verdict on whether I would use this color, what are some other colors that give you different levels of depth? The first one I would recommend is probably extra white. This would be a great off-white choice if you wanted something on your baseboards and trim, you wanted just a clean white to go with Summit Gray. I think it's a good choice. And then if you wanted a color that's sort of in between the two, quite a bit lighter than Summit Gray, but still shares the same sort of vibe, essence, undertones, I'd recommend something like Zircon. So this color kind of sits more around that high 50, low 60 LRV range. So a lighter color for sure. A lot more usable, I would say, as an interior choice, but it still has enough difference between extra white. So you get that nice contrast on either end. Zircon, extra white, Summit Gray, they all kind of fit together. They're very coordinating colors from the same sort of family. So that's how I would use it. But would I? Would I use Summit Gray in my home? No, I wouldn't. I don't really gravitate towards the cooler grays anymore, as a wall color choice especially. And if I did, I would probably go darker. I'd probably go with like a nice charcoal gray, slate gray, something even more cool leaning maybe to pull it in that direction to sort of go opposite. But I find these middle of the road grays to be really middle of the road. They don't really speak to me as much as they used to. Palette pyramid time! If you're unaware, we recently reviewed a paint color called Summit Gray by Sherwin-Williams. And today's video is all about putting together a color palette utilizing it. And the way we like to make color palettes on this channel is through the palette pyramid formation, a top-down approach to color selection. I love triangles, equilateral, isosceles, whatever the case may be, into them, especially in this context, because when you arrange colors like that, it gives you a great idea of how to use these colors. The top of the pyramid is going to be your main color, which is going to be the default choice, probably your most used color in your entire interior, and then your support colors are right below that. So your secondary options, maybe your trim color, other neutrals that can kind of work and give you another option in addition to your main color. And then down below, you have your finishing colors, and these are going to be more accent choices, your little pops of color, your added bits of depth wherever you need it. ThePaintPeople.com is your go-to destination for quality paint and paint supplies. We're more than just a paint store. We are your partner in bringing color to life. Our commitment to fast shipping ensures that your order will reach you promptly so you can start your project without unnecessary waiting. Visit our website today and discover a world of colors, quality, and convenience. And as a thank you for supporting us on YouTube, use coupon code JAMES5 for 5% off your order. So of course, we're starting with Summit Gray, which we recently reviewed. This is going to not be a main color, definitely not going to be a support color. I'm putting this in the finishing color category in this palette. Because of its LRV of 30, meaning it reflects only 30% of the light that hits it, that makes it a pretty dark color. I wouldn't recommend it as a main color that you would sort of use throughout your hallway and things like that. This is more of a color to sort of put in select areas of your home. Maybe you use it on things like furniture or vanities, cabinetry. It could also be an accent wall color, maybe more rare cases, a room color, wherever you want something that is rich and earthy and grounded and gray. My second finishing color option is even darker, believe it or not. It's called Stony Creek. And this is more of a deep, dark espresso black. Like it has a 9 LRV. It looks pretty black. It has this charcoal feeling to it, but there is a noticeable amount of warmth coming from brown, almost like a reddish brown as well, which is really, really nice. It gives you more depth than Summit Gray. Also, believe it or not, a little bit more warmth, although you may not necessarily notice it because of how dark it is. Just a beautiful dose of richness that I think adds a lot to this palette, just to give you some extra contrast on the darker end. The third finishing color is going to be much lighter than these two. It's a 60 LRV, so it's in that upper mid-tone territory. It's called Piedmont, and this is going to be a cool color, both literally and figuratively. Just a nice amount of green and blue coming together to give you a very airy turquoise that I think just gives another take on accents. So a lot of people think your finishing colors, your accent colors, they gotta be dark, they gotta be rich, they gotta be heavy. But this does the opposite. It's accentuating because of its coloration rather than its depth. Lovely choice if you wanted something just a little more fresh and zingy and fun. Because we started from the bottom, now we're here, which is the support colors. I'm going to give you two options, both a trim color and then another wall color that will coexist nicely with our main color, which we'll finish with. My off-white color choice in this palette pyramid would be pure white. A beautiful, no-brainer, no holes barred white that I think is just awesome at working in so many different situations. And because we've already explored some cooler options, some warmer options, pure white does a really great job at connecting the dots as a trim color. And because your baseboards are most likely going to be continuing throughout your home, you want it to be able to work with whatever dining room color you have and whatever bedroom color you might have upstairs. This is going to be one of those choices that's going to work in a lot of different situations, especially with these colors. The second support color is going to be a secondary wall color option to use when you're not going with your main color or any of your finishing colors. And this one is kind of an interesting one to me because it's not your typical greigey color. It has a noticeable green undertone, which I think is really interesting. And it's called Nonchalant White. This is what I would characterize as a greenish. A bit of a greeny beige with a touch of gray, but a lovely lightness to it. It has a 72 LRV, so it is quite light as a paint color, and it just has an airy, holistic feeling to it, I feel. And I think it's because of that green. It just brings it to another level that is really lively and maybe not necessarily suitable for every part of your home, but definitely those secondary spots, maybe your living room, a family room, a solarium, bathroom, even a kitchen. I can see this working. Just has this lovely quality to it that I think differentiates it from the main color, which of course is the top of the pyramid. Your main color option, which is the default choice that you can use when you don't really know which paint color to go with the main color. And in this case, with this palette pyramid, the color that connects everything together is called Arrowroot. And essentially this is going to feel like a very traditional, safe beige paint color. And the reason I went with it is because I just wanted to give you something that was a little more straightforward, considering we were working with mid-tone dark grays, off blacks, and then these bluey green colors. This is going to give you a color option that's going to feel like home. If you're a bit intimidated on how to use all these colors in every part of your home, Arrowroot becomes a great sort of step one safe choice. It's going to feel very neutral, a bit of a blank canvas color, which I think is really nice. And here's the pyramid. Let me know what you think. It's been a while since we did a bare color palette, so that's what today's video is all about, featuring Cracked Pepper. And that's a color we recently talked about. We'll get to it in a little bit, but let me tell you what palette pyramids are all about if you're new here. They're essentially a 6-color palette that we put together, actually me, I'll take all the credit. And it's done in pyramid fashion, starting with our main color up top, which is essentially your go-to default wall color choice. If you don't know what to paint a specific room, just use your main color. That's typically how I think of it. Today's sponsor is us. ThePaintPeople.com is your go-to destination for quality paint and paint supplies. We're more than just a paint store. We are your partner in bringing color to life. Visit our website today and discover a world of colors, quality, and convenience. And as a thank you for supporting us on YouTube, use coupon code JAMES5 for 5% off your order. And the one that I selected for this palette is Dove, which is not necessarily the color you might expect it to be. It's not a beautiful bright, crispy white. This is more of a warm grayish, which I think is a very versatile type of color that can be used in a number of situations. And that's because it combines the neutrality and the just cleanliness of just a nice gray, but also the warmth and the comfort of beige. So either way, whether you lean one way or the other with your decor, a grayish kind of connects the dots. And that's what I think Dove does a great job at doing. It has a 66 LRV, so reflecting 66% of the light that hits it, which is, you know, pretty good. It's 2/3 light enough that it's going to make a space feel nice and airy, but also not too dark. It's in a pretty nice spot lightness wise, I feel. Dove being the main color is probably the most important color in this palette, but it's not necessarily the most exciting. So let's get to some of the others. So after our main color, we move down to our second level of the palette pyramid, which is your support colors. These are going to be some secondary options that you can use as trim or alternative wall color choices. So let's start with that white color for your trim. Nano White would be my pairing for Dove specifically, because of the fact that it is bright, it's crispy, it has just a touch of like this like kiss of taupe. Like there is just like this bit of maybe this stone gray sort of warmth that comes through, but it's extremely subtle. It has an 87 light reflectance value, which means it's going to be very bright, not the brightest out there, but still bright enough to really separate itself from all the other colors in this palette. Great choice as a no-brainer option on your baseboards, your doors frames, woodwork. Could maybe use it as a wall color, but I don't really recommend white all the time because of the maintenance and the upkeep, of course, and the application. It can be hard to cover it properly, but the option's there if you want. I think a better alternative as a secondary wall color would be something like Loft Space, which is a 61 LRV color, so a little bit darker than Dove, and also quite a bit cooler because this one does feel like a more traditional, like stainless steel kind of gray. It has this slight blue cast going through it, so it does feel a little cooler. You have some options with this and Dove specifically. You have the warmer grayish option, you have the slightly deeper, cooler, bluey gray option, a little more pure in its grayness. And I do find that colors that feel this gray tend to feel even cooler in person. Like it's just the way our interior lighting has sort of evolved, moving away from warm incandescent lighting and going towards these cooler fluorescent or LED lights that do have a bit of a cool color cast. You will probably notice that Loft Space will look a little more bluey in person, but you won't know for sure until you test it out. So please test your colors before you actually buy gallons and gallons. Thank you. Okay, so now the fun begins. Here is the finishing color row. These are the accent colors that really set the palette off in a nice way. We already talked about some neutrals that you can use on your walls and your trim, but what if you wanted more richness or more coloration? Well, why don't we start with the color I mentioned off the top, Cracked Pepper. So this is going to be the first finishing color. It is definitely the darkest color in this palette. Spoiler alert, it has an 8 LRV. It only reflects 8% of the light that hits it, making it very dark. And some people might be spooked by that because they're like, oh, I don't want to feel like I'm painting a room and making it into like a small cave. Well, it's actually the opposite. When you paint a room a dark color, because light is being absorbed, in fact, 92% of the light is absorbed, the walls will look like they're sort of receding away, like receding into themselves, being pushed away, sucked into oblivion. So there is some upside to painting a room dark. You don't need to just think of this as an accent wall choice or a furniture color. This is a color you can use wherever you really want that moody, deep sort of feeling. I painted this room over here, very similar color to Cracked Pepper, and it worked out beautifully. It is kind of a chill out zone. We have movie nights over there, so it worked out perfectly. But yeah, don't be spooked by colors like this. I think Cracked Pepper's awesome, and it's a great dark door color if you want to do that too. Like if you wanted white trim and then dark doors in the middle, this is an awesome choice for that. Number 2, this is kind of a surprising one. It's Mannequin Cream. You may notice that this is a pretty light color, not so much an accent feeling color, but I wanted to give you something that was really bright and warm. It's gonna feel like an accent in the sense that it's so vibrant and lively. It has an 80 LRV, so it is quite bright. This is my alternative to something like nano white on the walls. Instead of going with a bright white, go with more of an off-white that feels a little more creamy and fun and positive. This is a color choice that doesn't feel grayed out and dusty and maybe muddy in some cases. It feels very pure and clean, and I think this palette really needed it just to give you something on the opposite end of the spectrum compared to Cracked Pepper, for example. I would love this color in somewhere like a solarium or even a kitchen where you want it to feel nice and just, oh, I think it'll have that effect. I could be wrong, but maybe not. The third finishing color is a little more my style. It's called Environmental. It has a mid-tone 45 LRV green. And it's a green that does have maybe a touch of warmth to it. Like it has a nice sort of slightly sagey quality, but I would say it's a little more deep than your traditional sage green. I think it's a wonderful connecting piece that you can use pretty liberally. Like it's not one that you can just have in one specific room. Maybe like Mannequin Cream, which is kind of polarizing. This one is your more plain ice, more traditional accent color that can be used in rooms. So not necessarily just in small doses. You can put this in a living room, a family room, bedrooms, whatever the case may be. Anywhere you want to break free from the neutrals, but still have something that can work in a number of different situations, Environmental is my choice. Here's the palette all together. Please let me know what you think. And if you want your own personal color palette from me, we do offer it as a service, whether you need a 3 color, 6 color, 12 color palette. Link in the description down below if you want to know how all of that works. And we have another video right over here. This Sherwin-Williams palette is cool, literally and figuratively. I'm James, and I put together a color palette featuring Naval by Sherwin-Williams, which is a paint color we recently talked about. So now I have 5 other colors that I'm going to put alongside it, creating an ultimate palette pyramid. This, of course, is our way of putting colors together, and you can use this palette on your next paint project if you're a professional, or if you just want some colors for your own home, take them. They're free. Today's sponsor is us. ThePaintPeople.com is your go-to destination for quality paint and paint supplies. Whether you're a do-it-yourself enthusiast or a professional painter, we have everything you need to make your project a success. Visit our website today and discover a world of colors, quality, and convenience. And as a thank you for supporting us on YouTube, use coupon code JAMES5 for 5% off your order. So the reason I like to go with triangular color palettes is it's a top-down formation when it comes to putting colors together. The top is the main color, which is going to be your default choice for your walls. So think open living areas, hallways, foyers, anywhere that you don't really know what color to use, just go with the main color. It's probably going to be fine. It's neutral, it's passive, it's versatile, and in this palette, it's incredible white. This is going to be the color that's going to sort of tie everything together. It's your glue color that you can use anywhere you really want. It's light, it's airy, it has a 74 LRV, or light reflectance value. That means it's reflecting 74% of whatever light hits it. And that's going to make whatever space you use it in feel lighter and airier. Now, the name Incredible White doesn't really tell us a ton, other than it's incredible and it's white, but it's more of an off-white, and I would say it is borderline cooler, but not like a blue-gray white. It has more of an earthy stone gray that can sometimes come across a bit cooler leaning, but it is soft and subtle, so you probably don't have to worry about it too much. It's an incredibly flexible color that can be utilized in a number of different color schemes, especially this color scheme in this very palette. So that's the main color, the go-to. What about the support colors right below? Two colors that are more secondary within the palette. One being a more true white paint color, and then maybe a slightly darker neutral that can be a good secondary wall color. For my white choice, I'd probably go with Snowbound here, just a bit lighter and cleaner than Incredible White. It is a very subtle difference between the two, but it's still light enough so that you will notice a little bit of a soft contrast if you use Snowbound on the baseboards and the doors and the frames, and then Incredible White on the walls. More of a minimalist approach here. We're not going too intensely vibrant with the white paint color, and I think that is just going to lend itself nicely to the rest of the palette. The second support color is going to be another wall color, and this is going to be an option for you if maybe Incredible White is a bit too light, but you still want something in that neutral family. I'd probably recommend Essential Gray as an option. And this is one of those grays that I kind of deem to be a bit grougey, like a bit of a reddish, almost more of a browny kind of gray. It doesn't sound appealing when it's described like this, admittedly, but it's kind of a muddy gray. I think in person, it reads a lot better than that, than what it sounds. I just think it's just another one of those colors, kind of leans a little bit cooler because it is gray in its base, but just like Incredible White, you don't really have any of that blue quality coming through. It's more of a earthy coolness, which I think is really nice. Very transitional, so whether you're into more traditional or contemporary color schemes, boho, Scandi, pretty much any style, I think you can find a use case for Essential Gray. We're gonna get to the finishing colors, which is my favorite part of the video, and also you can finish clicking that like button if you want. So let's start with the first accent color of these three, which of course is Navel. This is a color we have talked about on the channel. It is a favorite of mine. It is a very dark navy blue. A 4 LRV, which means it's going to absorb 96% of whatever light that hits it, which actually can be a good thing if you want something to really stand out with richness, or you can even make a space feel a bit bigger, especially in like a powder room. The powder room's probably going to gain like 10 square feet, or at least visually. And that's because darker colors absorb more light, which is going to push the walls away a little bit visually. It's kind of a fun illusion you can do. And this is a color that's been featured in countless numbers of collections and color catalogs by Sherwin-Williams. Super popular color, really rich. And in terms of the type of navy that it is slightly warm leaning. Like it has a little bit of a green touch in the background. It's not going to be like a purpley denim blue. Not really. This one has that more nautical feel, which of course the name suggests. Now for a more light and airy and floaty color, we have Rain as another option. This is going to be the second finishing color, another blue. This is more of that sky blue aesthetic. Arguably can be a little more versatile as an all over the room color, awesome kitchen color, whether you're using it on the walls with white cabinets or on the cabinets themselves if you want to get a little more trendy with it. I think that very subtle green undertone really just energizes this blue in a wonderful way. And at a 49 LRV, you don't really need to worry about it feeling too dark because it is pretty much as mid-tone as you can get, give or take a point. Lovely versatility here, especially compared to Navel, which is more on that rich, dark accent category. Probably a little more you can do with this one. The third finishing color is sort of tied to the last two a little bit. They're in the same kind of family. This one is probably more of a distant cousin, a bit of a wild card, but I wanted to throw it in, see what you guys think. It's Vesper Violet. So yes, definitely a purple, but this is a purple that is more of a frosty purple, close to a periwinkle, I would say. This is a color that's going to be the trickiest to implement, I think, especially as a room color. Unless you're talking bedrooms, then I think it's fine no matter what. But I would love to see this color more in accent form off of the walls, perhaps in the form of throw pillows, artwork, textiles, area rugs, end tables, things like that, where they can just pop. And especially against a backdrop of incredible white as the main color, I think it's going to be really dynamic and interesting. Not a color you see very often being utilized, but I think it's one that can really work if you're a little brave with your color choices. Here's the palette all together. Please let me know what you think. And hey, if you're looking for your own custom palette pyramid from me, either 3, 6, or 12 colors, depending on your project size, we do offer that as a service. Link in the description down below if you want more information on that. And we have another video right over here. The color Aleutian. The company Sherwin-Williams. This is Hue Review, so let's do some reviewing. I'm James from the Paint People, and if you're new here, this is a channel that's all about paint. Paint colors, paint products, color and color theory, and sometimes design if I decide to sort of venture down that path a little bit. Hue Review specifically is the show that aims to review every single color from all the major paint companies, and there's a lot of them, so let's get to it. The way that I like to review colors is maybe a little bit different. I go by the 3 V's: vibe, versatility, and verdict. First, I'll give you the whole essence of the color, and then I'll give you an example of how usable it is in real life, because I think that's very important. And then I'll give you my verdict on whether I actually like this color and whether I would use it and how I would use it. And then for the people that are looking for an off-white that goes with it and maybe a different color that's kind of in the same family, I got you at the end, so stick around for that. And also, before I get into this review, here are some alternative colors from different paint companies that give you a similar essence to Aleutian. These are not spot-on matches, okay? I never said they were. What they do give you are alternative colors in that same sort of blue family that Aleutian is, in case your painter just doesn't want to use Sherwin-Williams, wants to stick with Valspar or Benjamin Moore. These are colors that'll give you that same sort of feel, but the only way to get Aleutian in its 100% purest form is to actually just get a can of Sherwin-Williams. So there, I said it. All right, so let's talk about it. What's the vibe with Aleutian? I keep thinking I'm saying illusion with a funny accent. Aleutian. Just, don't know what country that's from, but just a nameless, vague accent, I guess. What's cool about this color is it is cool because it's blue leaning, but it's also a former color of the month from 2022, which is interesting because if you're a subscriber and you've been following me for a little while, you probably know that the color of the year by Sherwin-Williams is a blue. So even though this was popular 2 years ago, it looks like blue is back in a much more light direction. Check the cards up top if you want to see our color of the year video for 2024. Sherwin-Williams. It's called Upward. It's actually quite nice. But this is about Aleutian, a much darker blue. And we know how dark it is because we can check the LRV of this paint color, which of course is the light reflectance value. And it has a 39 out of 100. It's only reflecting 39% of the light that hits it, which isn't that much. It's less than half. And in practical terms, I would say this color ends up being one of those mid-tone, slightly darker mid-tones. Definitely gives you a strong sense of hue, of color. Now, blue isn't just blue. It can go into a number of different directions. Namely, in my experience, it goes towards the green side a little bit or the purple side. Aleutian doesn't really have any greeniness to speak of whatsoever. It's kind of this denim blue that I think is really popular nowadays. There is a little bit of a toned down feeling to it. I like to describe colors like this as being dusty, as if they have like a thin layer of dust over them to sort of mellow them out. So it's not just bright, saturated blue in your face. It has a calm feeling to it. It's a little more chilled out and settled, which I think is usually a good thing, especially if you're someone that is coming from a much more passive, laid-back sort of approach to color selection, where you maybe just go for things like gray and beige and you don't really venture too far away from neutrals. This is a color that is still pretty saturated, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of that stepping stone to like the really dynamic primary colors that you probably won't even end up using. It gets you kind of there. It's a fun color. So let's talk about versatility next. This is going to be one of the more important things because a paint color's versatility is its practicality. I think if you're painting your home, you don't want to pigeonhole yourself by picking a color that's really vibrant and fun and suits maybe one thing very well, but if you decide to change things up at all in the near future, you don't want to feel like you're stuck painting the wall because it's not going to work anymore. How usable is this color inside versus outside? So on the interior side of things, I would put Aleutian at a mid versatility, which is interesting to me because I was going to say, oh, it's low, it's too saturated, but that dusty quality does give it a little more workability. It's a color that doesn't feel like it's trying too hard, if you know what I mean. It has just that soothing, calmed down feel to it in practicality when you start using it. And I think that's a good thing, because even though this color is blue, it doesn't scream coastal to me. It feels separate from any interior design style. I wouldn't go as far as to say this is a timeless blue, because this kind of denim sort of feeling blue is not something that has existed forever. A navy blue is a little more timeless to me. I think the fact that it is lighter gives it some brownie points, because it's not going to scare people off that don't want those deep, dark, moody colors in whatever space they're deciding to paint. It reflects enough light where it gives you a nice, pleasant feeling to it. Kind of looks a little bit like the sky, really, when you think about it. Although it is on that darker side of midtones as well, so just be mindful of that. In person, it might be a little bit darker than you might expect. On the exterior side of things, I would put Aleutian at a low versatility, which is sad to say. I think the color would look really nice outside on the home, especially if you're from Newfoundland or maybe, I don't know, Amsterdam or Norway. It's not one of those mega bright colors, like, don't get me wrong. I almost feel when you're using a blue outside like this, you don't need to go as blue as you might expect. Even a cool leading gray could look more blue when used outside because of the sun having such cool light being cast onto the home. Personally, I think Aleutian is a little too far towards the blue direction where it could stand out a little bit too much. Maybe it would work better as more of an accent color, like on a front door, if you didn't want to go with like a turquoise or something super vibrant. Yeah, it's not a color I would really picture being used outside. Probably more an interior vibe for me. Okay, so let's get to my verdict. What do I think about this color? How would I use it? Where would it go on the Paint People palette pyramid? Is it a main color where you can use it everywhere? Is it a secondary support color that helps bolster that main color? Or is it purely a finishing color that's just more of an accent choice? I would say it barely makes it to the finishing tier of the palette pyramid. And I say borderline because I don't think it's necessarily screaming accent to me, but I think there's enough saturation there where it will end up feeling pretty accentuating when you use it in your home. That being said, I don't think this is the type of color that you only can use in one part of your home and that's it. It's light enough that you can use it in a couple spaces to sort of have a more cohesive flow and a cohesive theme going on. It's one of the more usable finishing colors. In some cases, I guess it could be a support color if you wanted it in all your bedrooms for something really consistent, maybe all your bathrooms upstairs. Those are two of the spaces that I think it would be used most commonly, but I've seen a lot of pictures online of it being used in living areas and kitchens all over, so you can get pretty creative with this one. So that's how I would use it. But would I? I think so. I think Aleutian is a beautiful color. I do like these denim blues, and I haven't used them in a while, especially in my own home. I've never used it, but I think it's a color that interests me. And I don't know if that interest means it's what I actually like, or it just seems kind of fun in theory. I might give it a shot one day. Who knows? If I had another room somewhere and I didn't need to change anything else that's in my house, I could give it a go. Now, before we finish up, I want to give you two other colors that I stumbled upon that I think would go really well with Aleutian, kind of in the same sort of family. So I have an off-white for you, and I also have another color that's going to be a little bit darker. So you kind of have three different levels that all sort of coexist in the same space. So for an off-white choice, Rarefied Air, I would probably recommend. A cooler white, it's pretty crisp feeling, and it actually technically has a icy violet or purple undertone, but it's very passive. It's more just a cool off-white that I think is really nice with Aleutian specifically. And then a darker color that I think would go really well is Distance, which is a 15 LRV color, so quite a bit darker, but still not too dark. I mean, you could go with something like Indigo Boutique as well as another option, which is a color I'm very fond of, but it just gives you a little bit more lightness, which can give you a little more room to play. I'll leave you with those colors if you want to kind of mix and match them. And if you want me to make a full-on palette pyramid utilizing Aleutian, just let me know in the comment section below and I'll get on it. We recently reviewed the Sherwin-Williams color Aleutian, and today I'm going to give you a palette pyramid using that color, so you have 6 colors to work with on your next paint project. What are palette pyramids, you ask? Well, it's the paint people's way of putting together paint colors. I love me some alliteration. If you're new to the channel, I'm James, this is the Paint People, and a palette pyramid is essentially 6 colors, or more, or less, arranged in 3 different tiers. Your main color is what everything else kind of stems from. It's your default choice. If you had one color to paint the entire interior of your home, for example, it would be the main color. Next would be your support colors, which are going to be your secondary colors. So think maybe other neutrals for your walls in the other sectioned off parts of your home where your main color isn't going. It could also be your trim color that you're painting your baseboards and your doors and your frames with. Just those other colors that would help support your main color. And then of course, along the bottom, you have your finishing colors, which are your accent choices, those little finishing touches, that bit of seasoning in your color palette that you can use when you want to just change things up and have a nice little bit of depth or some color. And the reason I like to have more finishing colors than anything else is because I like giving you options. I want you to be able to pick and choose which finishing color would work in which space of your home. And it also means that if you have your own personalized custom palette, which we do, link in the description down below, you can use finishing color 1 this year, and then maybe next year you want to change it up and go with finishing color 3 in that same space. Why not? They're all interchangeable. That's how these palette pyramids are designed. So let's get back to today's color, which is Aleutian. We did a review on it. I do enjoy this color. Where would I put it on the palette pyramid? Well, typically it would probably be a finishing color right on that 3rd tier, mainly because it is pretty saturated. It's clearly a blue. It's not a neutral. So you would want to pick and choose where you use this color in your home. Unless you're a huge blue fan, then just paint your hallway with it. Go for it. But I really enjoy these more denim leaning blues, and Aleutian is a great example of that. It's a former color of the month, not quite color of the year caliber. It also has a 39 LRV, so it's reflecting less than half the light that hits it, which gives it a more rich feel rather than something that's more pastel leaning or off-white. But because of the type of blue that it does kind of give you this sky blue sort of feel. Because when you look up at the sky sometimes, even on a bright day when you have no clouds in the sky, that blue is pretty rich, right? So Aleutian kind of gives you that feel. Our second finishing color goes from the sky to the sea. It's called Anchors Away. And this is quite possibly one of the darkest blues that I've ever seen. It has a 3 LRV, so it only reflects 3% of the light that hits it, which of course, math, it absorbs 97%. This is a very dark color, deeply saturated, and it kind of represents the deep, dark ocean. When I was working on cruise ships and I would look over the railing at night and I just see a sea of black basically, or a really, really dark navy like this color. Just gives you another option in that sort of blue realm, because I assume if you're here watching an Aleutian video, you do appreciate blues. This gives you another option. Not so much a denim blue. I guess you could say this does feel like a really dark denim, but a very different option within that blue category. Maybe an accent wall choice for an Aleutian room, or you just have it as a standalone color on some furniture, on some cabinetry. You can use it in a room where maybe you get sufficient lighting, so the darkness of the color doesn't really matter. Great option in all of those cases. Our third finishing color takes things into a very different direction. It is called Coral Clay. And the name does a great job at describing what it is, because clay as a color typically is kind of a brown-based color, or at least a tan color, that either goes into an orange direction or maybe in a more red-leaning direction. And this one definitely is in the red family, but what you get here is a more pinky clay color. I really enjoy it. I think it's very fun as a finishing color, as an accent color. Probably not something you want to use in a lot of parts of your home, just a little touch here and there just for some fun. It's going to be pretty complementary to the blues we've talked about, so I wouldn't advise using them in the same space necessarily, probably not even in the same room, but it just gives you a very different feel that helps coexist with the main color, which we'll get to in a second. So moving up the pyramid, we have our finishing colors. What about our support colors? These are going to be your secondary options. The white choice I would go with in this palette is pure white. So I think pure white would be awesome on things like trim, doors, a good ceiling color, anything you want to paint white. Pure white is a great option that it feels soft. It's also a bit warm, which I think is always nice to pair with blues. I don't necessarily like to lean into cooler whites with blues. So pure white gives that touch of warmth, slight yellow undertone to it, and it just feels pretty straightforward and clean to me. I really like it. My second support color is going to be a neutral, even though it's technically part of the yellow color family by Sherwin-Williams. It's called Naturel, not natural, Naturel. We're French today. What can I say?
It's a strawberry.
So Naturel is a 54 LRV neutral, so that means it's pretty much solidified into that mid-tone territory. It's lighter than any of the finishing colors, which is already a plus, gives you some variety in terms of depth, but what you also get is a warmer lean. So definitely a combination of beige and gray, but because it has the yellow undertone, because it's part of the yellow family, what can sometimes happen is that beigey yellow combined with gray can give you a bit of a greeny undertone, which is kind of adjacent or a distant cousin of blue. It is a neutral that's warm, but still has a pinky toe on that cool side of things. So it's not going to be too contrasty. It's just a nice option for a neutral wall color that is different than our main color, which we'll get to right now. Okay, so what is the pinnacle of this palette pyramid? The color that ties it all together. What is going to be most likely the hallway color or the main living area color for your walls in this particular palette pyramid? Well, it is an off-white, and it's called aesthetic white. I like aesthetic white. I think it has a nice combination of feeling bright and lively, but still has something to it. So it's not going to feel too plain. It also has a very subtle taupey quality to it. And this means it's essentially an off-white with a little bit of brown that can sometimes give you a cool violet undertone. It's very subtle. It really is dependent on your lighting, but I think it feels classy and sleek. And I do think of all the colors in this palette, this is the one that I think I would use most on the walls, at least the most rooms or the largest surfaces. It's a very popular color. It's one of the top 50 colors by Sherwin-Williams, which maybe doesn't matter to you, but it kind of does to me. I actually trust the public, you know? And it does feel kind of settled and peaceful, and it's a great neutral canvas, so the stuff that you put on your walls will stand out that much more. So here's the palette pyramid all together. Please let me know what you think. Today, I'm gonna show you a color palette that I made using Sherwin-Williams's Forestwood. Or should I say Forestwood? Because it's one word. Also, Sherwin-Williams is not an easy word to say. I'm James from the Paint People, and this is a channel all about painting, decorating, color, and color theory. And palette pyramids are our way to put colors together in a really easy to understand fashion. Essentially, it works top down. Your main color up top, which is kind of your default choice, the color that you'll use most of all. And then under that are your support colors, which help support your main color in the form of a trim color or maybe another neutral that can go with your main color. And then finally, the bottom row are your finishing colors or your accent colors. And these are those special colors to help spice up certain parts of your home, whether you need to do a fun accent wall or a fun accent dining room. These are going to be your more saturated colors that will give you a little more hue. So we recently did a dedicated review on Forestwood. I told you what I thought of this color in an episode of Hue Review. And of course, you can check it out on the cards up top. I kept saying check it up, but I guess you could check it up or check it down in the description if you want to see that video after this. But the TLDR of it all, this is a beautiful dark green, an 8 LRV, which is an 8% light reflectance value. That's very, very low, which means this color is dark, but you didn't need me to tell you that because you can see it's quite dark. So where would I put it on my palette pyramid? Well, of course, it would go straight to the finishing section. This is not a color I'd recommend most people to use on things like hallways or trim. I mean, maybe in certain cases, but for the most part, this is definitely going to be one of those finishing colors, one of those special colors, those accent choices. I love dark greens like this. I have a dark green powder room right now. I have a dark green accent wall in this studio over here. It is a color I'm very, very fond of because it's drama, moody, but still organic and tied to nature. It has this lovely complexity to it that I think is really awesome. So if you are trying to spice things up in a room, going with a dark green is one of my favorite choices to make, especially if you have a lot of plant life, like some leafy greens, not like lettuce or cabbage hanging around, but actual trees and plant life. Doubling down on that green really pays off nicely. Why don't we continue with the rest of the finishing colors? My second choice would be Evening Shadow. Now this is going to be a very passive finishing color. You don't necessarily need to go with crazy, bold, bright, or dark choices. These are just going to be different enough to separate themselves from your main color, from your neutrals, essentially. Evening Shadow is one of those cool leaning grays. Technically, it is one of the neutral colors from Sherwin-Williams, but it's not your typical neutral. It's not a gray beige. It is a blue gray, a Blu-ray. Trademark, you saw it first on the Paint People, Blu-ray. Not Blu-ray, Blu-ray. It's late, can you tell? I don't even have a watch on, and checking my wrist. Comparatively speaking, this color has a 60 LRV, so way brighter than Forestwood, and that means it's going to reflect more light, it's going to feel more airy in your space, and for a lot of people, it's going to be the easier color to utilize, or at least easier to digest, because it is lighter. But just keep in mind that the blue aspect will be pretty prevalent. It is a silvery blue, I would say, but it is kind of chill, relaxed. It'll just give you a very different look than what the main color presents you, which I will present to you in a second. Well, we got to go to our third finishing color, which is to me the most different of the bunch, and I really think it helps complement Forestwood. So this is a color you could use in the same space as that dark green. Just be aware that they have a very polarizing, charged relationship, being on opposite ends of the color wheel pretty much. It is called Coquina, and this is going to be a color that's named after a rock made up of tons of tiny little rocks. And what it translates to is sort of this wildberry mauve. It's kind of a combination of a deep dark gray with some burgundy and some purple. There is a pretty noticeable red undertone happening here, which is why I kind of think of it as wildberry, like blackberries mixed with raspberries. You kind of have that sort of coloration to it. And it is mellowed out a little bit with some gray and brown. So kind of this taupe overtone, I would say. And then you have that purple red undertone. It makes it feel a little more interesting and eye attention grabbing. Whether you pair it with the more neutral colors in this palette, or even some of the other finishing colors to really give you that yin-yang effect. 28 LRV, so another darker color for sure. So I wouldn't use this heavy-handedly, and because it is based on taupe, it has that grayed out feeling to it. It's probably not going to be my first choice for places where you want something a little more energetic and fun and invigorating. It's a little more grounded feeling. It does have an earthiness to it. So even though the purple is there, I wouldn't call it the star of the show here. All right, so let's climb that pyramid to our support colors. These are going to be your second most used colors typically, either in the form of a trim color or another fairly neutral color to help coordinate with that main color that sort of ties it all together. The first one we'll talk about is pure white. So this is the off-white choice in the palette. This is going to be a pretty solid trim color option, I would say, for most people, because it's very clean, versatile, but bright. Not intense, not super vibrant, but it does have that clean quality that you're probably looking for in a white paint. I really like pure white. I think it's just one of the easier to recommend paint colors in the entire Sherwin-Williams catalog because it is so flexible. Now, in terms of the second support color, this is going to be another option for your walls. And it's neutral, but it does have a little bit to it. You could argue that this could have replaced Evening Shadow as one of the finishing colors, but I like it as something that you would use a little more than that one. Maybe a couple rooms, not just the one. It's called Stamped Concrete. And even though it sounds like just a plain old gray, super basic, super boring, it does have a really clear cyan undertone. Really beautiful color, very sleek, 35 LRV, so quite a bit of depth there, but I think you can really get away with it because it does have this relaxed feeling to it that I think is awesome in bedrooms and bathrooms specifically, but you can use it in other rooms as well. I would just recommend having some light, some windows perhaps, some natural light to really bring the color to life, because if you have it in, let's say, a basement that has little to no window light and maybe poor artificial lighting, really lose a lot of this color's magic in the undertones. It just will feel like concrete, which is maybe not the look you're going for. And before we finish up with the main color up top, I do want to mention that we offer custom color palettes to people that are looking for a specific one that's tailor-made to you by myself and my team. Mainly me, let's be honest. And essentially what you get are 3 different options at 3 different price points, depending on your project size. So if you're doing one room and you need a couple colors, if you're doing a whole floor and you need maybe 6 colors, kind of like these videos, or you're doing a whole house and you need more than that, you need 11 colors, we can do whichever option suits you best. Typically the 11 color palette is interior only, but then your 3 and 6 options, we can do exterior palettes as well. So just let me know what you're doing. You can check the description down below for more information. I can send you a video that can give you a little more details on the process, and then we can go from there. Okay, so let's finish this palette pyramid. What is the main color that sort of finishes everything off? Modern white is going to be the pinnacle of this palette pyramid. This is your main color, and if you're new to the channel, I invite you to subscribe. The main color is really the most important one because this is the color that you should be able to envision going everywhere in your home. As a starting point, I always think, hey, modern white all over my walls. And then once that's sort of done out of the way, then you can start to explore, okay, well, maybe maybe in the living room, I want something a bit darker but still neutral. Okay, great. There's my support color, stamped concrete. Let's slot that in. Looks awesome. And then, hey, maybe in the kitchen, I want the cabinets to be a fun color, so I can look at the finishing colors and pick one that I can use for that purpose. So modern white, definitely a great main color. Think hallways, main living areas, even just living room, family room, office. It can be just a great default choice. And I think it's awesome because it has a lovely brightness to it, but it still has some gray and some green that can really tie perfectly with Forestwood specifically, which is the color we started with. And that's it. That's the palette pyramid. What do you guys think of this one? Let me know down below. If you haven't seen our Forestwood review, it took me a while to say that, you have it right over here. The color Forestwood. The company Sherwin-Williams. This is Hue Review. So let's review. I'm James from the Paint People, and this is the color review show that aims to go through every single company's colors. All the major paint companies that exist. They got thousands of colors, and I want to review them all. And the way I do it is I give you the color's vibe. So an overview on what to expect with said color, and then I'll tell you how versatile it is, how usable it is, how flexible it is with different design styles. And then at the end, I'll give you my verdict. I'll tell you what I think for real, whether I would use it in my home, and if so, how would I use it? And today's not your average episode because we're talking about Forestwood, which is not a neutral, not an off-white. It's actually a very dark color. So for my people that aren't really a huge fan of all the light neutrals, this is one for you. So let's go through the vibe of this color. What's Forestwood all about? Well, if you've ever been in a forest, you might have an idea. Because this color, it's very green. It doesn't necessarily have any woodiness to it, at least on the outside. It's not really a brown color. It is, in my mind, firmly in the green paint color category, but there is a little bit of that earthiness that can maybe come from a brown base or perhaps a gray, but the green ends up being the star of the show here. Now, before I get into this review, I do want to give you some alternatives from other paint companies in case you're not used to using Sherwin-Williams, or maybe your painter is just set on going with Valspar only. These are going to be some similar options for you that give you the essence of Forestwood, but they're not spot-on matches. They are comparables. If you don't mind that it's not a one-to-one carbon copy, then maybe you can go with one of these. Otherwise, go with maybe a custom color match, which can get you a bit closer. But the only real way to get legitimate Forestwood as a color is getting it in Sherwin-Williams paint. So this color is clearly quite dark, and we can tell this exactly because we can look at the LRV of said color. And Forestwood comes in at 8, which means it only reflects 8% of the light that hits it. And that means it's not light by any means. Essentially, the closer you get to 0, the closer you get to pure black. And I think the darkest paint color I've ever seen maybe had a 2 or a 3 LRV. 8 is not really that far off. And I think when you are using dark paint colors, just be mindful of that. Your space will feel quite a bit dimmer. Even in this room, I have 2 walls painted with an off black, and then the other half I have with a much lighter color, a much more lighter neutral. If you're isolating your eyes and kind of blocking out your peripherals, looking at one side versus the other, it's a huge difference. Be aware of that. And if you are going for that more closed in, darker, cozy feel, this is a color that I think would be an option for you. Now, in terms of the kind of green that is, it's pretty balanced, I would say. It's not going to feel overly cool leaning or teal leaning. It also doesn't have an overabundance of yellow either. It just feels really settled. It does favor the more organic side of things, I would say, like an herbal kind of leafy green to a certain extent, which I think is a little easier to incorporate in more contemporary, warmer leaning color schemes. So I think that's a plus. Definitely gets brownie points from me because I do love greens of this ilk. I'm a huge fan of it. And just as a quick fun fact, it's part of the Timeless Colors collection by Sherwin-Williams. And I do think that greens of this style kind of never really go out of style, at least for me. Like, I think I'll always like greens like this. That tie to nature, that lovely ability to connect certain colors together, whether they're cool or warm leaning. Green is conceptually a combination of the two. You have yellow and blue mixed together. There's your greens. I do think that Forestwood is one of the more well-liked greens in the Sherwin-Williams catalog, whether that means anything to you or not. Okay, so we're going to get into the versatility aspect of Forestwood. How usable is this in practicality? And I think this is a very important point because you can admire a color from afar, but are you actually going to want to use it in your home? And I think the versatility of a color really plays into that. But before we do that, a little invitation. Hey, if you're enjoying this content, press that like button for me and subscribe if you want to keep up to date because I am going to review all these colors. The goal is to go through these literally tens of thousands of colors and review them all. Hopefully YouTube will exist by the time I finish. If not, we'll have to find a new platform, but I'm in this for the long haul. Okay, so vibe out of the way. Pretty standard here, like a deep dark green, really usable. How usable is it? What is the versatility on interior projects or exterior projects? If you want to use this paint color, are you really going to get some good use out of it? Inside the home, I would give Forestwood a mid versatility. And that's a pretty good score considering how dark this color is. No, I wouldn't recommend this for your hallway. I wouldn't necessarily say this is an awesome choice for your kitchen on the walls, but places like bedrooms, sure. Bathrooms, yeah. Living room, okay, especially if you have a lot of plant life, that green on green vibe. I could see it working. Cabinets, if you want something rich and dark, and maybe an accent color that's an alternative to a navy blue or a dark taupe. Green is one of those colors that I think is slept on. So in terms of one of those special colors that you want to use for certain projects, I think this is one to really consider inside the home. Now, exterior-wise, I would probably put Forestwood at a high-low, if that makes sense. It's lower for me because this is not a color that I often see used on the outside of homes, especially on the main body. And I do tend to gravitate towards colors that do have a green lean. But I think this one is a little bit too heavy-handed where it just maybe suits a more rustic type of feel, maybe a log cabin or a craftsman home, something that definitely has the aesthetic of being part of nature, then maybe kind of leaning into that with this color would work really well. But anything else, it's just a little bit of a stretch for me. I think stylistically it does depend on the home personally when you're using this outside. And in terms of other use cases like trim, not really my favorite choice at all. As an accent color, I think you can go more green forward, a little more vibrant with your front door color, let's say. Really not a color I would see used outside too often, personally. Inside, I think it has a lot more usability. So what's the verdict here? What do I really think of Forestwood? I have an idea. If you're a subscriber, if you've known me for a while, then you know I'm a huge fan of green. I may have 3 different greens in my home right now. The way that I like to start this segment off is where on the palette pyramid would I put Forestwood? Is it a main color? No, absolutely not. Support color? No. This is a finishing color to me through and through, which essentially is an accent color. In the spaces that you want something a little more special, Forestwood is going to be a great choice for that. And what I like about it too is you can use this as an accent color in many different ways in your home. This could be a room color somewhere, an accent color somewhere else where you just have it on one wall. You can paint your cabinets with this color in your kitchen, especially on the lowers or the uppers. It has a lot of usability in that accent kind of space. So that's how I would use this color. But would I? Oh yeah. I mean, I have, kind of. I've used very similar colors on that wall over there, in my powder room upstairs. Dark green is one of those deep dark colors that I can always rely on. It just seems to work with me and my personality and my design aesthetic. And my wife seems to like it as well, which is good too. So big thumbs up for me. Forestwood's great. If you want me to do a palette pyramid regarding Forestwood, where I have 5 other colors that I sort of build around it, let me know in the comment section below. And before you go, I'm going to leave you with 2 color pairings because like I said in the previous video, I have listened to the feedback. I know a lot of you kind of miss the pairings that I do with these reviews. And even though I do want to make it about Forestwood specifically, I do want to leave you with 2 other colors that I think are great pairings in their own right. And what I want to do here is give you an off-white and a mid-tone color. So you'll have the full spectrum, kind of in that same sort of family, that same sort of realm, but just 3 different levels of depth. So an off-white that I think would pair really well with Forestwood, even though it's a very different color in terms of its undertones, is alabaster. Alabaster is a color I'm very fond of for a number of reasons. I think it works in so many different circumstances. And then in terms of a lighter color, or I guess a mid-tone color, it's actually a 21 LRV color. So it's quite dark, but next to Forestwood, it's a lot lighter. It's called Dried Thyme. Very adjacent, I would say, in terms of it being a green, so there's a lot of similarities there. There might be a little bit more visible warmth, and I think it's just because it is a brighter color, so it can give the illusion of that, but it still has a cool sort of feeling to it. Sherwin-Williams Gauntlet Gray, an amazing paint color that a lot of people seem to love. And in this video, I'm going to present to you a color palette that I put together, arranged in pyramid fashion. This, of course, is palette pyramids, which is the paint people signature way of arranging paint colors together. A traditional color palette is kind of just a nice grid of colors. Pyramids are in top-down formation, and we do this because it gives you an extremely easy to understand and clear view as to how the colors should be used and presented in your home. We did a dedicated video explaining everything in detail about palette pyramids, which you can check the cards up top or the description down below. But assuming you're already a subscriber, you're already up to date, so let's get into it. So let's start with Gauntlet Gray, the featured color of this video. Where does it go on the palette pyramid? I actually have two answers this time. If we're talking interiors, I would say it's sometimes a support color, but most of the time I would put it as a finishing color. That's where it's going to be in today's palette pyramid. One of Gauntlet Gray's strengths is how versatile it is. It can be used in so many different circumstances. It is part of the neutral color palette, which does give it that flexibility, but it does have a 17 LRV. It is a very dark color. It's very deep. It doesn't reflect a lot of light, so that could give you some limitations in how you use it. In this case, I just have it as an accent color. So in the parts of your home where maybe you don't want something that is off-white or even mid-tone, you really want to lean into some depth and some darkness, then Gauntlet Gray is a great choice in a lot of situations. Accent walls, accent ceilings even, or the occasional accent room, maybe some interior doors, it's a great choice there. Of the three finishing colors in this palette pyramid, this is probably gonna be your safest option. The second one is a little darker and a little more saturated in terms of its undertone, which is purple Pearl Noir. This beautiful violet undertone is quite subtle, but can be more prominent in areas that get that cooler lighting to accentuate the purple aspect. This is going to be an 8 LRV color, so really dark, extremely deep as a paint color, way more than Gauntlet Gray. Like when you have the two side by side, you can really start to see that Gauntlet Gray does feel more like a tone rather than a deep dark shade. That's also why it has that versatility. This one, on the other hand, is going to be more selective. And on the Sherwin-Williams website, there's a great picture of how it's used in a bathroom, but it's really only on the top half of the wall. There's white wood paneling below it that's taking up a lot of that visual space. And then you have the shower right to the left of it, which is white as well. So really there's not a lot of walls being painted this dark eggplant black, basically. So that's where I could see it being used as just a beautiful, little accent here and there. Our next one is the lightest finishing color, and it's called Sleepy Blue. So this is an interesting choice where it's going in a completely different direction, at least in terms of the lightness of it. It is quite a bit brighter. This is now a 58 LRV color, so brighter than your standard midtones. A sky blue, very gentle pastel color, very airy. And if we go back to that Sherwin-Williams example, you could technically replace that Pearl Noir with Sleepy Blue. It'll work just the same, but give you very, very different looks. And that's the idea with these finishing colors. They can be interchangeable and give you completely different feels depending on which color you end up going with. We're going to get into some neutrals that you're probably going to be using most in this color palette, including that main color at the end. And I just wanted to let you know that these videos have 6 colors in every palette pyramid, but we do offer custom palette pyramids that are made by me and our design team, and they're available for purchase right now. You can check the links down below. About a 3 business day turnaround time. You just present me your ideas, some specific colors you want to be included, or you just want to leave it up to me. We can go ahead and build you your very own 11 color palette pyramid. And again, you can find out the details on that in the description down below. All right, so finishing colors are done. Those are your accent choices to sort of accentuate certain things in your home and in your design. Let's go to the support colors, which are directly supporting our main color up top. The first one I want to present you with is White Snow. And this is going to be your white choice of the palette, let's say. So anything that needs to be painted white, whether it's doors, trim, ceilings, even walls maybe. This will be my recommendation for this color palette pyramid. 90 LRV, very bright, very clean, very stark, extremely minimalist paint color, which I think is great. But if you want something that has more color, that is not just a white, you can go for the second support color in this palette. It is called Believable Buff. And what's awesome here is this color is going to be a 59 LRV, brighter than a midtone, brighter than all the finishing colors. And also you'll notice there's quite a bit of warmth being introduced. So maybe you're not leaning into those grays, those neutrals, that off black, or even that blue. You do want at least some part of your home to have that warm, cozy feeling. Believable Buff will do that. It's a timeless sort of look, almost a bit of a bronze undertone happening here, which I think is really beautiful. Will help prevent the whole color scheme from feeling a bit too cool and contemporary. We need a bit of traditionalism in this palette, and that's kind of what Believable Buff does. And then to finish things up, we have our main color. Now this is going to be the pinnacle of our palette pyramid. It's the color that ties everything together. You can think of this color as your default choice that you can use on your walls. If you don't really know where to use your support or finishing colors, just rely on this one. It is called Pearly White. A lovely, beautiful color with some gray undertones, 77 LRV, so very bright, but not too overpowering. Time for a color palette pyramid. I did a color review on Indigo Boutique by Sherwin-Williams, and today I'm going to present you with a color palette that I made specifically utilizing it. And what's great is this is no ordinary color palette. This is a Paint People palette pyramid. Our method of arranging colors together in a top-down fashion that I think is extremely versatile and easy to use. If you haven't seen our introductory palette pyramid video, I'll leave it in the cards up top and in the description down below. But for everyone else, for all my awesome subscribers and my loyal Patreon members, you already know, so let's get into it. So of course, palette pyramid, you got your main colors, support colors, and finishing colors. Let's start with Indigo Boutique, because this is the color in question. Where does it fit in this particular pyramid? Well, spoiler alert, it's not the main color. It is not even a support color. It is going to be a finishing color. So in the bottom row of colors in this palette, Indigo Boutique is going to act as an accent color. It's going to accentuate certain things in your home, whether it would be an accent wall in your most standard kind of go-to use case for accent colors, or things like furniture, vanities, built-ins, cabinets, maybe even an accent ceiling if you're feeling frisky. Indigo Boutique is an awesome navy blue. It has a slightly denim feeling to it, a very dark denim. And of course, if you want to see the full review on it, I'll put it at the end of the video, or you can check the cards up top as well. So because we started with the finishing colors for this video, let's continue on with our next one, which is Foothills. This is a beautiful dark taupey brown. This really reminds me of the color of like a boulder, like a nice earthy stone type of coloration, combining some brown, some gray, maybe a touch of green as well. Earthy colors like this can sometimes have the slightest bit of a green undertone, but really that's just the combination of the warm brown and the gray kind of interacting, giving it that earthy quality. I do find this to be a fairly neutral color, even though it is dark. So even though it's technically one of your finishing colors, this is probably going to be your most passive or safe option within the neutral color palette. So let's say you started with Indigo Boutique on an accent wall and you really loved that blue, but then you were just kind of thinking of switching it up and maybe you wanted something a little more desaturated but still having a lot of depth. Well, Foothills is a perfect substitution for that. I find it's going to work a little bit better with other colors because it is part of the neutral family. It does have some flexibility and versatility to it while still giving you some oomph. The third finishing color in this palette pyramid is going to be probably the most exciting one, maybe the most polarizing one. It is one of Sherwin-Williams' timeless colors. It is called Tatami Tan. Now this is a tan color that has a lot of this golden, bronzy orange almost. It has quite a bit of vibrancy to it, very punchy color, especially when you compare it to a more traditional soft neutral tan. This one is bringing the heat. It has a lot of zing to it, which I think is awesome. Looks really good with Indigo Boutique as well if you have just a little bit of this color and a lot more of that blue. But I think this is an awesome finishing color if you really want a nice, strong statement, or maybe just a small percentage of the overall color palette. You want something to really stand out, just maybe one little end table that you're repainting or refinishing. This will cut through all the other colors in the palette. Moving on up the pyramid, we have our supporting colors. Now these are going to be your secondary colors that are going to be supporting your main color. They'll also be your second most used colors in the whole palette. Essentially anywhere you're not using your main color and your finishing colors, the support colors are going to slot right in. To start with, I want to give you a great baseboard color, a trim color. This is called White Snow. White Snow has a lot of cleanliness to it. It is sleek. It has a 90 LRV, so very bright. It's going to contrast with a number of different paint colors on the walls, which I think is a good thing. And it's also part of the Emerald Designer Edition collection. So it's one of their newer colors, their newer releases. Very minimal, very modern, very sleek, very contemporary. I like it. Now, what about a wall color to sort of support your whole color palette? I think a good option is Patience. And also you're going to need a bit of patience because the main color, the one that ties it all together, is coming up in a little bit. Patience is an awesome neutral beige that's described as having a tan neutral. It does have that base where there's a little bit of brown, maybe a bit of gold and orange hiding in the background very, very slightly, which is going to tie in beautifully with the other colors, especially those finishing colors we talked about. It also has a 67 LRV, so a decent amount of depth to it. It has some richness. It's not going to be completely pastel and washed out. I think in areas that you want a little bit of noticeable warmth, a little bit of color, this is a great option for you. But it's not my main color. My main color is going to be the pinnacle of this palette pyramid. It's going to tie everything together. This is going to be your default color that you can use pretty much anywhere on the walls within this palette. Hallway colors, living room colors. If you wanted to continue it into some bedrooms, I don't see a reason why you shouldn't or couldn't. The main color is going to be in incredible white. And this is not going to be your traditional white that is very bright and clean. This is more of an off-white. It has a 74 LRV, so it only reflects about 3/4 of the light that hits it, which makes it pretty light, but not insanely bright. Incredible white also has a little bit of a coolness without feeling blue. So just a mellowed out, clean, slightly earthy gray color that I really enjoy. Extremely versatile. And what's great is it's going to harmonize with the other choices we've talked about. It's going to connect all those dots because we had some warm options. We've also had some cooler option, especially with Indigo Boutique. So incredible white at the top of the pyramid to sort of tie everything together really nicely. So this is the palette all together. Please let me know what you think. We got a bit of a hot and cold theme here. And hey, why don't you check this one out next? I have a feeling that the design world is about to go dark. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're breaking the rules and embracing the dark side of color. Shaded colors, darkness. We're talking about black and other bold colors in painting and design, especially on the interior side of things. Don't be afraid to add a touch of drama and intrigue to your home. We're gonna get into it in this video, but before we do, please hit that like and subscribe button and that notification bell if you want to stay up to date with all of our videos. So I wanted to start by talking about the power of black. I'm wearing it right now. I have some black walls behind me. I got black acoustic paneling to make the audio nice and crispy in these videos. Oftentimes black is overlooked as a paint color, but it can really be a powerful and versatile choice. I find it to be fairly timeless as a paint color, and it really can add some elegance and sophistication to any space based on the amount of contrast it has with most other colors. There's also a variety of blacks you can go with. You have charcoals, you have more blue leaning blacks, you have more black bean, brown leaning blacks. There's a lot you can do. But ultimately, here's why I think you should consider incorporating black into your home's decor. First of all, the drama of it all. Black can add this sense of mystery and intrigue, making your home feel more sophisticated and classy and inviting. I think black is the epitome of cozy cave vibes because it's as dark as you can get when it comes to paint colors. Even though black is pretty timeless, it can add a modern touch based on how you're using it. I think it's something that feels very contemporary, especially when you use it more heavy-handedly in full rooms or even on trim, like window trims. I see it everywhere these days, which is maybe a bad thing. But black is the antithesis of white, but they do a lot of similar things. They're essentially the purest form of color or the lack thereof, and oftentimes our wall colors are somewhere in the middle. So black and white, they do a great job at contrasting one way or the other. Now, beyond black, we can talk about some bold color combinations. Black and white is a classic pairing, but there are many other bold color combinations utilizing black that can add some drama and excitement to your home. First one I can think of is black and gold. Very glam, very luxurious. This luxurious combination just screams luxury to me. And maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you're more into quiet luxury, but I think it is kind of a fun pairing and pretty classic. For a more energetic combination, you can go black and red. This is a bold and daring combo that adds energy and excitement. A great choice for home offices or entertainment spaces. But I've also seen kitchen cabinets, believe it or not, with like a shaded red and a black. Really moody, very personal, very polarizing, but it looks pretty good if you pull it off and it suits your taste. Another one is black and green. This is a natural, refreshing take on black, and it helps create a sense of calm and tranquility, perfect for bedrooms or bathrooms. You could go full black here, or you can even go for that black bean, dark chocolate, brown black as an alternative, just to sort of tie in that nature theme even more. Think of like a topsoil color. And then you have a variation of that, black and teal. This is kind of an unexpected pairing because it creates a unique and eye-catching look. Still has a connection to nature a little bit, but more so towards the coastal, aquatic, and nautical side of things. I do find it to be a great choice for more contemporary spaces. So yeah, black and teal, pretty cool. Now let's talk about other dark colors that maybe aren't black, and that would be jewel tones. So if you're going dark with your paint colors and you don't want just deep, dark jet black, you can go with jewel tones, which are rich and saturated colors to add that glamour, that luxury, that color, that fun to your space. And I find some of my favorite jewel tones to use on the interior side of things would be an emerald green. A deep green creates this elegant vibe, a ruby red or something that has maybe a little bit of a shaded quality, more warm leaning, just passionate and energetic. And you have sapphire blue, which is more of a calming, kind of tranquil feeling color, but still very rich and saturated. And then one I suspect you're going to see a little bit more going into the next year or so, amethyst purple. This is more of a mysterious, interesting color that will create intrigue, not one that feels very predictable. Purple is a color that gets underused, I feel. So I think it's one to definitely consider. And then away from jewel tones, you also have dark neutrals. Don't feel like you need to just go with these bold, crazy, obnoxious options. You can also rethink neutrals by going with those darker, kind of rougey brown colors, the taupes, the slate grays, things of that nature. So muted, but just really deep and saturated. And that might be a good place for a lot of you to start. All right, so here's some tips on how to use black and bold colors in your home. The first one would be to start small. If you're new to this, if you're just used to using pastels and off-whites everywhere, maybe just start with a piece of artwork or furniture, a little bit of decor items, maybe an accent wall, just a little bit here and there. See how you like it, see how you feel. If that becomes the focal point and you're just really drawn to it, maybe you have a thing for these darker colors. So just go for it and then slowly expand outwards as time goes on. You can add more and more of these darker, more rich, colorful elements. This will help you get a feel for how the color looks in your space. It's a bit of a taste test, if anything. Second tip would be to balance with neutrals. Now, we talked about those dark neutrals, but I'm also encouraging you to utilize, your whites, beiges, and grays to help balance out the boldness of black, of those jewel tones, of those rich colors. This will create more of a harmonious atmosphere, and it just gives you that sense of scale. And I mean like a Libra scale. It's a good idea to balance things out a little bit, especially if you're just starting out. Number 3 would be to consider the room's function. Bold colors might not be the best choice for something like a bedroom where it can be a little overwhelming, especially the more saturated colors that are a little more vibrant. However, they could be perfect for places like bathrooms, the living room perhaps, home offices for sure, and even a dining room where maybe you're just going to use it for an hour a day and you can just kind of bask in this really cool color. But personally, I do like those darker colors in bedrooms, so it just depends on your personal preference. And then of course, don't be afraid to experiment. Have fun. Experiment with different color combinations to find what works best for you. There's no right or wrong answer when it comes to color and home decor. And that doesn't mean you experiment by throwing paint on the wall willy-nilly. Sample, take the color chips home, see how you feel, bring in some colorful throw pillows and see how the colors interact with everything else in your space. And then if you want to commit to painting, then go for it. Don't be afraid to embrace the dark side of color. Black and bold colors alike can add a unique and dramatic touch to your home, and with a little creativity and some experimentation and maybe a bit of vino, don't drink and paint. You can create a space that is both stylish and inviting. We'll see you on the next video.